right. Thank you, guys. One of the ways to make your monetization experience works for your app is through advertising. I'm here to talk about one specific section about advertising that is very fundamental to all of us, both in principle as well as its practicality. It's called auction fairness or transaction fairness. That is actually one of the reasons why header bidding came about. It's a hack. It's really a hack to basically making sure that there's a separation of power to make sure that the auctions are fair. So the three things that I'm going to cover today in the short minutes we have is one, about header bidding, what it is, and two, the challenges that header bidding is facing in the mobile in-app environment, and then third, what is that viable alternative that we at Unity Ads are very happy to share, as well as like the momentum that we're seeing in the industry. Before getting into header bidding, I think it's important to understand about the advertising ecosystem in general when it's a mobile in-app environment. So one, if your player of your game opens up, your app, it will actually request for an ad to a mediator's ad server. This mediator ad server is the brain of the entire operation today. What that means is they have the sole power to basically decide who they want to call, who they want to allow to participate in your auction, who's going to win. And this is exactly the issue right now, because that entity is holding so much power. And along with it, because this mediation ad server also have their own interests in actually winning the auction, because they have their own demand, then the whole conflict of interest and fairness comes to play. So that's what header bidding is. Header bidding is really meant to basically solve that problem. In a nutshell, what it does is, instead of just calling the mediation ad server when your player is playing your app, it's going to subsequently call the demand partners you want at the same time. So what that demand partners could do then is to basically conduct an auction. So when everything gets consolidated, nobody's playing games, the auctions is being done in a very fair way, and you improve your revenue performance. That's header bidding in a nutshell. There is, though, the problem that header bidding is facing, which is why it's a buzz. It's a legitimate buzz in web. In mobile in-app, there are challenges. One, the web ad server provider is really centered around one entity. And that one entity, we all know, they also happen to be providing search services for all of us online. But in mobile in-app, the ad server environment is fragmented. You have a lot of major players. A lot of them are the mediation partners. Some of them are like the ad networks themselves. But given that header bidding is a hack, what that means is a header bidding provider needs to basically conduct this hack 10 different times to basically retrofit and fit every single one of the ad server that is provided for the mobile in-app environment. Second is, the ad server or the mediation provider needs to actually accept that hack, and not all of them does accept it, which basically makes the challenge even more challenging. And then the third factor that contributes to the challenges of header bidding in mobile in-app is SDK adoption cycle. In web, if you're trying to basically conduct a header bidding hack, you put the code in the header of your page, you publish it, everything is basically live on day one. In mobile in-app, you have to worry about the entire review cycle by Apple, and then the adoption cycle, the release. All of these things basically takes time. And then if you have a problem along the way, then you have to redo the process. So with all of these three things in conjunction, that is why header bidding is just having this extra challenge that it has in mobile in-app that it didn't have in web. But we have to respect the entire spirit of header bidding. The problem is trying to solve. And the problem was created because of the monolithic way of how advertising transactions was being done in mobile in-app through waterfall. There are two prime examples of waterfall mechanism in transactions that I can basically create an example by using a Christie auction, let's say. So imagine that all of us here in the room are trying to bid for a very beautiful painting that is behind me, except instead of letting all of you participate in the auction, I split this room into two. I just happen to like the people that are on the left side on this room better than the right side of the room, so you guys cannot participate. They will have a first chance in buying this painting. No matter how high you're willing to pay for it, they got it the moment one of them wants it. It's not fair. Worse yet, the second scenario is I'm going to partition this room into like per row, and each row will have an ability to bid before the next row. So people that are sitting on the front row, power to you guys. You guys will have the first chance in buying. Except I also happen to really like this gentleman right here, so every time you guys are bidding, I will whisper something to his ear and say, can you bid that price by a penny? If you can, I'll give it to you. And then the next row comes in and try to bid, and I will again whisper the same thing to this gentleman. Can you bid it again by a penny? If you can, I'll give it to you. That's the two forms of waterfall transactions that are happening in mobile in-app advertising today. And that is the whole root cause where header bidding came about. The hack is really relevant because it's trying to solve a legitimate problem. But because of the challenges, we feel that there is an alternative. It's called unified auction. Of course. At this point, you guys are probably thinking, like, this is not really a new concept. In fact, let me tell you, a unified auction would exactly be the way a Christie auction should be run. Everybody participates in a bid, and the highest bidder will win. But before we get into the details, because I think the details is really what's going to excite all of us, the one principle that we're trying to respect is under the waterfall model, the highest bidder may not win the auction. Under the unified auction model, we want the highest bidder to always win the auction. But as they say, it's not the ideas, but the details, the execution that matters. There are four main key benefits on the way unified auction, we feel, should be implemented that we at Unity Ads are proud to share, that we feel is going to directly translate to the publisher benefit. One is the publisher revenue upside. If you have everybody bidding in the same auction environment, the highest bidder will win. That will create an upward competing pricing pressure. So that will translate to more revenue for the publisher. Second, and this is a long and hard-fought battle for us, but we demand every single partners that we integrate with, whether it's viewability, verification, or demand partners, to have no impact to your SDK footprint. What that means is everything is being done through server to server. So when you partner with entity like Unity Ads, for example, that will basically will not deteriorate your app stability, and it will not increase your app footprint. Third, and this is really the theme of this talk, it's a fair auction. We have our own demand, and we basically let our own demand compete fairly in the same auction. So no gaming, everybody has a fair shot at winning. Last but not least, it's a one-stop shop. What this means is we don't have any commercial restrictions that prevent us from integrating and partnering with anybody you're interested in having. By virtue of us partnering with many different entities, by partnering with a unified auction provider, such as Unity Ads, you will get a one-stop shop experience in terms of reporting, as well as demand coverage across the board. So that's all we have. Thank you. As I mentioned, to recap, unified auction is a viable alternative to header bidding. Header bidding has its own challenges in mobile and app, but it is fair that it's trying to solve an auction fairness problem. So you will have a lot of partners to choose from, but when you choose your partner, please don't forget to ask them two things. One, is your auction fair? And two, can they bring you the benefit that unified auctions can bring to you as you monetize your in-app environment? Thank you.